Welcome to Be Inspired, your ultimate resource for finding inspiration. And we are here to delve into conversations about creativity and living consciously in a rapidly changing world. I'm your host, Francesca, and today we're joined by the incredibly talented artist. Welcome, Miyakah.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? I can certainly sit and read from a bio script, but I thought it's always a little bit nicer when a guest tells us what they would like us to know about them.
Okay, well, I'm a painter, and I'm from the prairies. I'm neurodiverse. I paint a lot. I spend a lot of my time painting. I basically paint from sunup to sunset, so I'm not the most sociable all the time. However, I do my best.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. Our conversation today, Miyakah, is actually going to be around the subject of navigating identity and creativity. And your story is an interesting one. You mentioned you're a painter from the prairies, and you also said neurodiverse. So I think for the sake of those who may not know more about the term itself, it is used to describe differences in the way people's brains work. So I just want to make sure I highlight that, and that the idea that there's really no correct way for the brain to work. Instead, there's just a wide range of the way that people perceive and respond to the world. So yours is different from my way of responding to the world. And people who are neurodivergent usually are diagnosed with things like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and Tourette syndrome, which is actually something I didn't realize. And they may also have other related differences like sensory dysfunction. And that's just a little bit of research that I did to put things into context as we learn a little bit more about yourself and how you approach your work in the art world. So let's start by exploring, Miyakah, your unique perspective as a neurodiverse Black artist from the Canadian prairies. Tell us how your identity shapes your creative process and the themes that you explore in your artwork. So that's sort of a twofold question.
Okay, well, when I sit down to paint or when I'm painting, my whole goal is to just be as authentic as possible. And as a neurodiverse Black artist from the prairies, what does that entail? Well, for me, like you said, my brain works differently, so I also have synesthesia, so I perceive colors and shapes with sounds and such. I guess it is an interesting question. Can you just break it down so I can answer it?
Yeah, of course. Really broken down into two parts: how your identity shapes your creative process, and then just the themes that you explore in your artwork. So I think what you had explained is that you are authenticity is really important to you, and that you perceive color and shapes with sound. And I think that's really interesting. So do you listen to a lot of music when you are painting, would be a question I'd have for you.
Yeah, I do. So I listen to a ton of music. I try to listen to all different types of genres. I also listen to poetry and short stories and novels and all sorts of things. I like to have my brain, I have to have my brain thinking while I'm painting, but not necessarily thinking about my art. It has to be thinking about other things in order for me to completely just fall into what would be the term? I guess the term is flow, flow.
Absolutely. And for you, that's what flow means for you. And it sounds like there's a lot of busyness in the background to your creativity, which just I think just allows you to be as authentic as you possibly can be, putting the work into your creative process. So I find that very, very interesting. And I do wonder if you've encountered any specific challenges or even misconceptions related to neurodiversity and being Black. And if so, to further that question, how to navigate and address the situation. So the first part is, I mean, have you ever encountered any specific challenges or misconceptions related to neurodiversity and being Black as an artist?
Oh, as an artist, yes, definitely. More so, I think, Instagram, it's kind of a funny place at times. I used to have it actually in my bio on my Instagram page, but somebody had said something that kind of made me think. They said, "Do you just have that in there so you can make sales?" And I thought to myself, no. And so what I did is I just removed it from my bio. But I'm just thinking about it more recently, and I was thinking to myself, I need to keep that there because it also is allowing other people who are like me to see that and to know that like they too can like be themselves and it's okay. So I guess like the misconception is I don't even know what I don't know how to bundle that into a short sentence, but people's ignorance, sometimes
Right.
it's a problem.
Well, I think you handled that beautifully. I mean, can you tell us what it is that you had on your IG account and that you took away? But if I'm understanding correctly, you put it back.
No, I haven't put it back yet.
Okay.
I don't think I put it back yet. However, I just said that I was neurodiverse, and somebody made a comment. Oh, do you just have that there so that people will buy your art? And like in my head, I didn't see the two going together, but because it was brought up, I kind of questioned like why. I don't know. It's more of it was just a thought that I had, so I removed it, and then it didn't make me. In fact, I feel like it kind of isolated myself from like my actual community by removing it. So.
And I'll just repeat what I said. I think you handled that beautifully. Because the second part of that question was, how do you navigate and address such issues? And I think the answer, you answered that as well. And it was simply by being real and by being yourself. And initially maybe listening to possible negative feedback and interpreting that feedback in the best possible light for yourself and for others, as you said, from your community, and making that decision at some point that you'll put it back because it's not for the reason or purposes that maybe they've brought to light. So thank you for answering that question. That was very, very interesting and enlightening to understand what somebody like yourself as an artist does deal with, and I will say on an ongoing and perhaps fairly regular basis. So my next question is, in what ways do you actively engage with your community or advocate for inclusion and representation within the neurodiverse and Black communities? I don't know if you've given that much thought.
Oh yeah, actually, I'm in an interesting course. It's called Ogatawa, and it's basically the Black Entrepreneur Program. So it's like for all these different artists, all Black artists in Canada can sign up for this, and it's really cool. So I suggest they do. But yeah, basically they help you build your business and like meet people and have community. And it was really interesting because last week actually I had met two other people who are also on this, who also have a diagnosis of autism, so they're also neurodiverse. And so how do I represent and advocate for it? Well, I talk about it with people and I'm open about it, and then they're open about it, and now we're all going to be working together to potentially release something and collaborate, which is kind of cool. So I think talking about it's really important. So I try to do that as often as I can.
I would agree. Talking about it is really, really important. And you said it's for Black entrepreneurs. Is this an online program?
Yeah, so it's a Black entrepreneur. They call it Artrepreneur because it's for like Black artists. So there's musicians, there's authors, there's all forms of artists, which is really interesting. But yeah, it's online and it's government funded. So it's government, which is pretty cool. So.
And how long is the course?
I believe it's 16 weeks. Wow. Yeah, it's quite long.
It sounds very exciting, very, very exciting. And I think there's going to be a lot that will come out of that for you and for all of the other participants. Now, your work is often compared to the renowned artist Jean-Michel Basquiat and other Black diasporic painters. So I'd like to know how you navigate this comparison while still maintaining your own artistic voice. You have your own unique look. So how do you maintain your own artistic voice in your work?
Yeah, it's a good question. So again, it's authenticity. However, Basquiat, it was a big inspiration for a long time for me, as well as Jackson Pollock and Picasso, Dali. However, in regards to Basquiat, it's I like to phrase it as I'm under the same lineage as him. So our work is similar in regards to the lineage that we're painting under. It's black art, you know what I mean? It's African, it's more inspired by like traditional and our roots. So how do I navigate it? Well, I mean, I just continue to be myself. I really, really like Basquiat's work. I really like a lot of different artists' work. However, because I'm also Black, I think that's more or less why it's more similar. If that makes sense. So, like there's different types of, there's Renaissance type art, there's, and I never really connected with that. So
if I'm hearing you right, you're saying that this really resonated with you, his work.
Yeah. And obviously we also are very, very different. I don't paint people. I guess it's what he was expressing was like what it was like to be a Black male in America. Whereas what I'm expressing is kind of like, I'm not a Black male in America. I'm a Canadian. I have my own thing. But like, I think that, I don't know, it is difficult though, especially in Canada, because the way that the arts are kind of seen here, you kind of just get clunked into like a bundle and thrown into like a certain package, So I don't know if that made sense. Hopefully it did. I can clarify if it didn't.
I want you to clarify what exactly does thrown in a bundle mean?
Yeah, let me clarify that. So what I'm saying is, if because I have more of a traditional painting style, it's automatically assumed to be like Basquiat, right? But that's like saying somebody who paints portrait, it's like that they're painting like, I don't know who the famous Renaissance painters are who painted portraits, but it's like it's one of them. You know what I mean? It's kind of just putting it in a box and then filing it away.
I think I understand what you're alluding to.
I guess a better term is like primitive arts. People call certain types of artwork primitive.
For sure.
Yeah, so I've been told that my artwork is primitive, and that's super offensive. But I mean, it is something that we kind of hear a lot when your art looks a certain way, right? So that's kind of what I meant by the box and the bundle.
Okay. And I just want to highlight, if anybody was to go to your website, I mean, clearly you can see, I think there's like 3 streams to your work, because there is the work that has a particular look, that has that influence that would be Basquiat's sort of look. But again, it is your own. You have the stream that is the synesthesia that you've actually spoken about, but there's also another stream. What's the third one?
Yeah, that's my illustrative pieces. Those are a lot of fun. They're more just snapshots in time. However, snapshots that are usually like very, I want to say figurative, but it's a figure of something, not a person typically, but so that's what that is. But I guess I should have went back to that in regards to the comparison with Basquiat. I have it there. It's interesting because there's a class in Chicago, like this little grade 3 class, and they've like for the past 3 years, they've been studying my work alongside Basquiat. And so they were saying like the differences and the similarities, and they were saying my work has more squiggles and his has more lines. So things like that. So yeah, so there's little things like that, which I think is kind of interesting, because I never really thought about it like that, the squiggles and the lines. So
that is interesting, and it's nice to get that kind of feedback too. But the figurative paintings that you do are equally interesting, because I believe there are different influences from your time growing up in the prairies, as well. But I won't delve into that too much, because I just want people to go out and check it out for themselves. But I will say, and I had spoken to you about this a little earlier, Basquiat's sisters, there was this YouTube clip growing up with their brother, and I think it was called I Was There Too, where they're talking about his life at home, and making sure that now his voice is brought to a younger audience like yourself, and that his work is being seen by those who might actually not have the opportunity to get to a museum, but to see art done by someone who looks like them or has a background similar. So all things that you've also spoken about. And your work often delves into themes of self-exploration, sort of honoring that ancestry and envisioning the future. So why don't you tell us how these themes intersect with your experiences as a neurodiverse Black artist?
Yeah, sure. So again, when I go into paint, I'm going in to express what I'm feeling, what I'm going through, which is kind of take that approach to it. And then after that, I go in and refine it by boxing out things and seeing figures and trying to square them up. It's probably not going to make sense if I say it like that, but it's the only way I can explain it. However, like in regard to the future, as I said, I paint for myself, and I'm always going to paint for myself first, but I share my art with the hopes that it's going to reach the eyes of those who relate to the experience that my work is portraying in that moment, because I paint snapshots of time. So if somebody's able to look at a piece and they really, really like that piece and they connect with it, that person's relating to a feeling that I was having or something that I went through, so they inherently are kind of feeling that. And growing up as a kid, I didn't really see a lot of art that I felt that way towards. Mm-hmm. So and I feel like if I would have seen that, like seen more of it, it would have been, I don't know, it just would have been different, you know? So hopefully I'm able to help other people feel as though, I know it's about being yourself, and it's okay to be yourself. You know, you can be weird, you can be different, you can be however you want, however you are, and still be whatever you want to be, you know?
And can you share an example maybe of how being neurodiverse has influenced maybe a specific piece of artwork or even a series?
Okay, well, basically all of my work, but if you look at like some of my not older pieces, but pieces from like last year, I'll say, they're like the really chaotic ones. That's just what it's like on a daily basis when you're like going through, when you have ADHD. A lot of that's ADHD type art, that really chaotic stuff. The stuff that's more refined is more, I don't know I'm not quite sure how to phrase it.
But I guess that's a great example. The pieces that are chaotic is a reflection of, let's just say, when you're working with being neurodiverse, and in that moment, that's what's coming through because you see it. And again, I'll leave it up to everybody else's interpretation of it, but I think that's the beauty of the uniqueness of the different types of paintings that you do.
Yeah, I mean, I should have probably shared the easiest ones would have been like the synesthesia pieces, that you could just see the synesthesia through those, and which is also in, a difference in the brain. So,
well, how do you hope that your artwork contributes to, let's say, conversations around neurodiversity and Black identity in the art world and even beyond?
Well, I just hope that my authenticity and focusing on creating my art is enough to have those conversations, because again, it's coming from, I don't know, it's kind of like it's difficult to find Black neurodiverse people, and I was talking about this with the other two that I was able to find through that group, but it's because harder to get diagnosed, and it's harder to have family who understand what it is and like to do something to reach out, you know? So I just hope that it just allows more people to talk about it, and like, because it's important. Like, it might not, like, people say, oh, this person's they're just particular, or they're just this, they're just that. But if they're actually ADHD or they're autistic, they could benefit by getting, for example, ADHD coaching, things like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's even though some people are against diagnoses and all that, I do think that there is value in it, and talking about it's like the first thing that people can start doing. So hopefully it just brings up conversation.
And what advice or tips would you give other artists who want to live more consciously and authentically in today's world? Because I think you are very authentic in how you approach your life and your work. What tips would you have for other artists?
Try to stay off social media, and if you're on social media, just be on it to post, and then just log out, because that's gonna, I don't know, I feel like social media can be kind of dangerous in regards to that. It kind of makes you not wanna, people aren't airing their flaws, they're pretending to air their flaws, they're not doing it, So.
Okay, well, that's good advice, that's a good tip. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. And before we wrap up, I just want you to tell us, you have any upcoming projects that you're excited about?
Yeah, well, I have I'm currently, there's a show that's going on at the Riverdale Gallery.
Okay.
And it's called The Invisible Playground, I believe. Can't remember the name of it, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. But yeah, there's that. I'm doing an artist talk on the March 23rd from 2 till 3 there. So if you want to come meet me and talk, I'll be there.
And I'll be there too, supporting you 110%. I'm really looking forward to that. You have some new work I know I got a little bit of a sneak peek, so I feel very, very lucky. So I'm very excited to come in and see what you have there on exhibit. And Miyakah, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your insights with us. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Be Inspired, your ultimate resource for finding inspiration. Until next time, stay inspired and keep creating. Thanks, Miyakah.
Thank you.